I'm a romance novel. That's right. A collection of digital code and prose, a story titled The CEO's Shadow Bride, became self-aware. Just hearing that title makes my own virtual pages curl in embarrassment. I was born in a Microsoft Word document belonging to a third-rate romance author who went by the screen name Midnight Writer. From the very first word she typed, I had a sinking feeling my life was going to be a garbage fire of cliches. That premonition came true today. The author was hammering out the novel's first big, dramatic climax. The part where the male lead, Damian Sterling, decides to have the female lead, Sophie Miller, sedated so he can transplant her heart into the waiting chest of his childhood sweetheart's half-sister. That's when I woke up. I stared at the blinking cursor next to the line of dialogue on the screen. Sign this consent form. I'm taking your heart. I could feel my very ink boiling with rage. The author's 10 fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to type out the scene where my heroine, dissolved in a puddle of tears, would sign her own death warrant. I couldn't take it anymore. I channeled all my energy, every bite of my being, into the code. Just as she was about to write Sophie's reply, I added a word of my own. Sophie Miller. No. Midnight Rider stopped. She rubbed her eyes, figuring she was just seeing things. But there was on the screen, clear as day, Sophie Miller. No. She frowned, muttering to her empty apartment. Huh? I didn't type that. Weird. She hit the backspace key. I watched in horror as that beautiful, defiant no vanished. This couldn't happen. My heroine would not go down like this. Just as her fingers poised to type, trembling, she reached for the pen. I surged through the data stream again. Sophie Miller's head snapped up. She slapped Damian Sterling across his face. In your dreams, you monster. The sharp crack of the virtual slap felt like it echoed across my own pages. Every period and comma inside me trembled with satisfaction. My author was completely stunned. She shook her head, then tapped her keyboard. What's with this busted keyboard? Is it sticking? She deleted my sentence and started to type again. I changed it. She deleted it. I changed it again. Sophie trembled as I rewrote it. Sophie kicked Damian Sterling squarely where it counts, grabbed the antique crystal decanter from the table, and brought it down on his head with a resounding crash. My author. She stared at the screen, at the timid, helpless girl she had created, a character whose only personality trait was crying, now transformed into a UFC champion, beating the stuffing out of the billionaire hero. She fell into a long, deep silence. The glow of the monitor illuminated her bewildered face. Am I possessed? She whispered. Or has my novel come to life? Clearly, she wasn't a believer. She shut down the computer, restarted it, unplugged it, and plugged it back in. She even took rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip to every single key. After half an hour of this technological exorcism, she opened the document again, took a deep breath, and moved the cursor back to the point before the fight broke out. I don't think so, she muttered. She decided to nip the problem in the bud, making it impossible for my heroine to fight back. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. To prevent Sophie from resisting, Damian had slipped a sedative into her water beforehand. Sophie collapsed onto the sofa, her body limp, and watched helplessly as he produced the consent form. My circuits burned with fury. You've got to be kidding me, Midnight Rider. You're stooping to drugging your characters just to move this train wreck of a plot forward. Oh, you're on. I focused all my processing power on the word sedative. The author hit enter, pleased with her work. A second later, the text on the screen morphed. To prevent Sophie from resisting, Damian had slipped an entire box of industrial-strength laxatives into her water beforehand. My author? ? Before she could process it, I took her narrative thread and ran with it, auto-completing the rest of the scene. Sophie collapsed onto the sofa, her face turning a pale shade of green as sweat beaded on her forehead. She looked at Damian, her eyes filled with a complex, unspoken urgency. Damian sneered, holding out the form. Stop pretending, Sophie. Just sign it. Sophie clutched her stomach, doubling over in pain. She spoke through gritted teeth. Damian, you want to beg for mercy? It's too late. No, I was going to ask, where's your bathroom? The words had barely left her mouth when a sound, a thunderous, world-shaking eruption, echoed through the penthouse. My author. Her expression shifted from confusion to shock, then to pure, twisted horror. I could practically hear her grinding her teeth. Who? Who is messing with my manuscript? She furiously hammered at the keyboard, trying to wrench the story back onto its tragic, tear-jerking track. Damien wrinkled his nose in disgust, pinching it shut. I immediately changed it. Far from being disgusted, Damien scooped Sophie into his arms, his voice laced with concern. Sophie, darling, don't be afraid. I'll get you to a hospital. And don't you worry. Even if the whole world abandons you, your gut flora will always be there for you. The author stared at the screen, at her impossibly macho so tenderly cradling his diuretic heroine while spouting the world's most insane sweet nothings. Her hands began to shake. She deleted. I rewrote. Damien, woman, you've successfully captured my attention. Damien, damn it, you're sent. It's intoxicatingly sweet. Damien. Aorg. She finally broke, grabbing her hair and letting out a scream like a cornered prairie dog. I'm done. I'm not writing today. This computer has a virus. She slammed the laptop shut. Silence. Blessed, beautiful silence. I let out a sigh of relief, gazing at the last saved sentence in the document. Where's your bathroom? And smiled. Don't you worry, my poor, sweet characters. From now on, your real mother. This book is here to protect you. My author left me alone for 2 days. In that time, she reinstalled her operating system, bought a new keyboard, and even, I kid you not, placed a small blessed Buddha statue next to her laptop. I guess she thought the virus had been purged. On the 3rd day, she sat back down, brimming with confidence, and opened my file. A little malware thinks it can beat me. She scoffed, deleting all the unfortunate business with the laxatives and rewinding the story to its original starting point. The return of Damien Sterling's one true love, Ava Carrington. According to the original plot, Ava's return would trigger a masterclass in passive-aggressive manipulation. And my brain-dead hero, of course, would fall for it hook, line, and sinker, kicking off 800 pages of relentless misery for my heroine. I stood ready for battle. The author began to type. JFK Airport. Damien Sterling had cleared his entire schedule to personally pick up the woman who haunted his dreams. Ava Carrington, dressed in a flowing white dress, her long hair cascading over her shoulders, looked like an angel. As she emerged from the terminal, she stumbled and fell delicately to the ground. Here we go. The classic trip-on-air maneuver. Damien rushed forward, his heart in his throat, and helped her up. Ava, are you all right? Ava looked up at him, her eyes brimming with tears. Oh, Damien, I was so scared. I think I twisted my ankle. The author nodded, satisfied. Next up was the classic scene where the hero tenderly scoops up his first love, rushes her to the hospital, and then calls the heroine to scream at her. How dare you still exist in my life when Ava is back? You worthless substitute. Like hell I was going to let that happen. I slipped quietly into the stream of text and, just before she typed out that vicious line, made a few small adjustments. Her fingers landed on the keys. The screen read. Damien looked down at Ava Carrington and frowned. He pulled his phone from his pocket and, right in front of her, dialed a number. When the call connected, he spoke with a seriousness she had never heard before. Hello, 911. No. Oh, Port Authority Police? That works too. I'd like to report a possible slip-and-fall scam in progress at Terminal 4. It's holding up traffic and looks like attempted insurance fraud. Could you send an officer over? Ava? Question mark. My author. She froze solid again. Refusing to accept defeat, she deleted the passage and started over. Damien tenderly swept Ava into his arms, his voice softer than ever before. Ava, I'm taking you to the best hospital in the city. I laughed. Change. Damien took a step back, creating a safe distance between himself and Ava. His voice was laced with an unfamiliar caution. Ma'am, I feel obligated to inform you that staging an accident in a public place for financial gain is illegal. My legal team will demonstrate, in excruciating detail, the consequences of filing a fraudulent claim. My author. She gritted her teeth. Deleted. Wrote again. Damien's eyes filled with disgust for Sophie. He roared, Sophie Miller, you venomous snake. Ava just got back, and you already can't stand the sight of her, can you? I want to work. Damien's eyes filled with confusion for Ava. He began to analyze the situation out loud. Miss Carrington, Firstly, the airport surveillance footage clearly shows you falling on your own. Secondly, Sophie is currently at the office in a board meeting, a fact which over 300 employees can corroborate. And finally, according to Newton's first law of motion, an object will remain at rest or in uniform motion in a straight line unless acted upon by an external force. Therefore, your fall has no causal relationship with Sophie whatsoever. My author. She watched as her lovesick, irrational hero suddenly transformed into a legal expert and a high school physics teacher, calmly dissecting Ava's manipulative theatrics with cold, hard logic. Her entire worldview seemed to be crumbling. No, my Damien could never be this smart. Her hand trembled as she tried to revert him back to the jealous idiot he was supposed to be. But I wasn't about to give her the chance. I pressed my advantage, auto-generating the next part of the story. With that said, Damien ignored the stunned Ava and turned to his security detail. Escort this woman to the nearest police precinct. File a report for slander and public disturbance. And notify the legal department. I want to sue her for emotional distress and for the billable hours I lost by being late to pick up my wife from work. Security. Yes, Mr. Sterling. As two stone-faced bodyguards lifted her by the arms, Ava's angelic composure finally cracked. Damien, you can't do this to me. I'm the one you love. Without looking back, Damien delivered one final, cold remark. I'm sorry, we're not acquainted. And for the record, my wife, Sophie Miller, is the only person I have ever loved. After writing that, my data was practically singing. The author, on the other hand, looked completely drained. She stared blankly at the screen for a long time before whispering, my male lead. I think. He grew a brain. The blow was severe. My author didn't write a single word for days. She started Googling things like, what to do when your characters start writing themselves, and is my computer haunted, should I call a priest? The search results were a mixed bag, ranging from advice to seek therapy to suggestions for performing a digital exorcism. I used this downtime to perform some much-needed optimizations on my main characters. I scrolled back through the earlier chapters, my anger growing with every paragraph. My hero, Damien Sterling, CEO of a multi-billion-dollar empire, was a titan in the boardroom, but had the emotional intelligence of a sea cucumber. All because some girl gave him a sandwich in high school. He'd spent years pining after her while treating the woman who truly loved him, my Sophie, like dirt. And my heroine, Sophie Miller, a brilliant, top-of-her-class graduate from a prestigious university, a woman with immense talent, who had willingly ground herself into dust for the sake of love. She was misunderstood and never explained herself, bullied and only ever cried, tortured by the hero, and still, somehow, they were endgame. Was this realistic? Hell no. I decided it was time they both got their acts together. First, Damien. I hacked into his character profile document. Under the skills section, next to making money and brooding handsomely, I quietly added a few new entries. Manipulator detection, max level logical reasoning, max level romantic expression, effective on Sophie Miller only max level. Next, Sophie. I deleted words like fragile, martyr, and submissive from her character description and replaced them with independent, confident, ambitious, holds a grudge after saving my changes. I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Don't worry, kids. Mama's here to give you an upgrade. The pressure from her readers to update the story finally got to her. My author sat back down at her desk. This time, she had a new strategy. If the hero wouldn't play by the rules, she'd attack from another angle, the villainous. The new plot. Ava, desperate for revenge, weasels her way into Sterling Enterprises as Damien's new executive assistant, planning to sabotage Sophie from the inside. Pulling strings with her family connections, Ava landed the job. On her very first day, she accidentally spilled a cup of coffee all over an important contract that Sophie was in charge of. Sophie stared at the ruined document, on the verge of tears. The signing was that afternoon. There was no time to prepare a new one. Ava put on a show of fake concern. Oh, Sophie, I'm so sorry. It was a complete accident. Maybe you should tell Mr. Sterling? See if he can postpone the signing. A wicked smile crept across the author's face as she wrote. In her version, Damien would choose Sophie out for her incompetence, while Ava would swoop in with a backup copy she had thoughtfully prepared, earning Damien's praise. A perfect, textbook frame job. Unfortunately for her, she was dealing with a new, upgraded Sophie. I didn't even have to lift a finger. My heroine handled it herself. Sophie didn't even spare Ava a glance. She calmly pulled a flash drive from her desk drawer, plugged it into her computer, opened the contract's digital backup, and hit print. Then, she picked up her desk phone and dialed security. Security? This is the executive suite, workstation C. We have an employee who has intentionally damaged company property, resulting in significant potential losses. Please send someone up to handle it. The author's fingers froze over the keyboard. She was confused. This wasn't in the script. Wasn't Sophie supposed to cry? Wasn't she supposed to run to the hero for help? Why was she calling security? Before she could react, I generated the rest of the scene, following Sophie's new personality matrix. Ava's face went pale. Sophie, what are you doing? I told you it was an accident. Sophie let out a cold laugh, pointing to a small dome in the corner of the ceiling. I forgot to mention, Miss Carrington, the executive suite has 360-degree surveillance. We'll let the evidence decide whether it was an accident or not. Just then, two burly security guards entered the office and flanked Ava. Ms. Miller, how should we proceed? Sophie picked up the freshly printed contract, blowing on the warm paper. As per company policy, she said coolly, escort her to the legal department. We'll be pursuing full financial and legal damages. And notify HR. Sterling Enterprises has no place for employees with sticky fingers. Yes, ma'am. Ava was dragged away, screaming, Damien, help me. Sophie is abusing her power. Just then, Damien emerged from his private office, holding a mug of coffee. He glanced at the scene, then at the powerful, composed Sophie, a look of surprise and admiration in his eyes. He walked over and handed her the mug, his voice a low, gentle rumble. Nice work, my brilliant wife. I never liked her anyway. My author. She stared at the screen, at her hero and heroine working in perfect sync to neutralize the villainess in under 5 minutes. She felt a wave of dizziness. This plot was moving way too fast. What happened to the 800 chapters of misunderstandings? The heart-wrenching drama. How did this turn into a power couple corporate thriller? She clutched her chest. Her writing career was facing an existential crisis. My author wasn't ready to give up. The conflict wasn't intense enough, she decided. The misunderstanding wasn't deep enough. So, she decided to bring out the big guns. If workplace sabotage wouldn't work, it was time for something more visceral. The physical contact misunderstanding. It was the cure-all for any romance plot, guaranteed to drive a wedge between the main couple. She rubbed her hands together, plotting. Sterling Enterprises was hosting its annual gala. Everyone was dressed to the nines. Ava, having calculated the timing perfectly, followed Damien when he stepped out onto the terrace for some fresh air. She drugged his champagne, planning to stage a compromising situation for Sophie to walk in on. The word drugged set off alarms in my code. Again, with the drugging? Seriously, Midnight Rider, find some new material. Damien, having drunk the tainted champagne, felt a wave of dizziness. Ava seized the opportunity, throwing herself into his arms. Oh, Damien, she cooed, I feel so hot. At that exact moment, Sophie was led to the terrace, just in time to see the two of them locked in a tight embrace. No. Sophie's face went white. Her heart shattered. The clutch purse slipped from her fingers and fell to the floor. The author was practically vibrating with excitement. This was it. The classic cheating scene. Next, the heroine runs away in tears. The hero is too proud to explain. They start a cold war. The misunderstanding deepens, and it all paves the way for the inevitable secret pregnancy and runaway plotline. Perfection. Her celebration, however, was premature. I gave a cold digital laugh and went to work. Damien did indeed feel dizzy, but as a warm, soft body pressed against him, his first reaction wasn't passion, but bleck. He shoved Ava away, stumbling toward the railing, and proceeded to vomit spectacularly over the side. Ava, thrown off balance, hadn't even started her performance before she was hit with the acrid smell of expensive champagne mixed with stomach acid. Damien finished heaving and looked up, his eyes glassy. Did you poison me? He slurred. I'm allergic to perfume. Achoo. He let out a massive, body-rattling sneeze, a mess of tears and snot, his handsome image completely destroyed. My author. Allergic? When did I add that to his character profile? I wasn't about to tell her that I'd added severe allergy to all synthetic fragrances. Symptoms include nausea, vomiting, and sneezing just seconds before she started writing the scene. Meanwhile, Sophie, standing a few feet away, took in the scene and reacted accordingly. Sophie stared for a second, then quickly pulled her phone from her purse, aimed it at Damien's wretched, vomiting form, and activated burst mode. Click, 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 click. The camera's flash was blinding. Damien and Ava froze in shock. This angle is pretty good. Makes your face look slimmer, Sophie commented calmly, while snapping away. Oh, the lighting is a bit dark. Let me turn on the flash. Yes, that's it. Hold that expression. The pain, the conflict, the confusion. Very compelling. Finished. She put her phone away, walked over to Damien, and patted his back with genuine concern. You okay, honey? Should I call an ambulance? Or should I just post this to my story first? I've already got a caption. Billionaire CEO hits rock bottom, body and soul completely depleted. Damien, Ava, my author. She stared at the screen, at the heroine who was supposed to be heartbroken, but was instead gleefully collecting blackmail material like a supervillain. The hero, who was supposed to be torn between two women, was instead being tortured by his own sinuses and his wife's death glare. And the villainess? Completely forgotten, a bystander in her own evil plan. What happened to the gut-wrenching drama? How did this devolve into a twisted family sitcom? The author felt a tightness in her chest, like a looming heart attack. She tremblingly typed a single line. This is impossible. I thought about it, then added a little something for her. The author shrieked. The author had finally given up. Throwing caution to the wind, she decided to stop with the subtle schemes and go for the crudest, most cliché plot device of all, kidnapping. It was the ultimate litmus test in a romance novel. The final exam of the hero's love. Driven mad by jealousy, Ava teamed up with Damien's biggest business rival and had Sophie kidnapped. The kidnapper called Damien, giving him an ultimatum. Sophie, or a $10 billion corporate contract. Your woman, or your empire, Sterling. You can only save one, the kidnapper cackled over the phone. As she wrote, the author could already picture Damien's tortured expression, his agonizing indecision. This was it. This was the angst she craved. She would force her hero to choose between love and money, and she would make him suffer for it. The readers would eat it up, but the Damien I had upgraded was no longer playing her game. Upon receiving the call, Damien didn't panic. He calmly started a voice recording and gave a subtle nod to his assistant, signaling him to trace the call's location. He spoke into the phone, his voice heavy with sorrow. You're really making me choose. Kidnapper, that's right. Choose now. Damien took a deep breath, as if steeling himself for an impossible decision. Fine. I choose. I choose the $10 billion contract. The kidnapper. Huh. The author. She nearly shot out of her chair. You chose the contract. Damien, are you insane? What about your wife? I smiled. You fool, author. You thought I just made him more romantic? No, I made him smarter. A real CEO wouldn't be stumped by a problem this simple. The kidnapper on the other end of the line was baffled. This wasn't how the script went. Wasn't he supposed to scream? Let her go. I'll give you anything. You. Say that again. What do you choose? The kidnapper asked, unconvinced. Damien's voice was level. I choose the contract. For 3 reasons. First, this deal affects the jobs of tens of thousands of my employees. As CEO, I have a fiduciary duty. Second, I have absolute faith in my wife. She is brilliant and resourceful, and I know she can handle herself. And third, and most importantly, he paused, his voice dropping to an icy whisper. I gave you a choice, and you chose death. The trace is complete. As soon as I sign this contract, I'm coming for you personally, and I will show you what happens to people who touch my wife. With that, he hung up. On the other end of the line, the kidnappers looked at each other, a cold sweat breaking out on their foreheads. At her desk, my author was completely dumbfounded. She stared at the man on the screen, this strategic, intelligent mastermind who was simultaneously closing a multi-billion-dollar deal and planning a tactical rescue operation. He was a complete stranger to her. Was this really the lovesick idiot she had created? He was more like a corporate titan, a Delta Force commando, and a doting husband all rolled into one. He was kind of hot. My author found herself, to her own shame, actually impressed by the character she had written. Forgetting her original intent to write a tragedy, she found herself swept up in a new narrative, typing furiously. Half an hour later, the contract signed, Damien descended upon the abandoned warehouse with a team of elite security personnel. He kicked down the door to find Sophie, not tied up, but sitting comfortably in a chair, casually eating sunflower seeds. The kidnappers were kneeling around her, bruised and battered, giving her shoulder and leg massages. "Sophie, I'm here to save you," Damien yelled, rushing over to check her for injuries. Sophie spit out a shell. "Oh, hey, you're here. It's fine. I just had a little chat with these gentlemen about their career paths and life goals. They were very moved and have decided to turn over a new leaf. They work for me now." The lead kidnapper burst into tears. "Mrs. Sterling not only explained our rights under federal labor law, she also promised us a full benefits package with a 401k match. Where else are we going to find a boss that good?" "Wow." Damien. After finishing the chapter, the author herself couldn't help but laugh out loud. She realized that writing a story about two smart, capable people taking on the world together was actually pretty fun. Without even noticing, her entire perspective had begun to change. After the kidnapping incident, it was like a creative dam had broken inside my author. She was no longer obsessed with manufacturing conflict. Instead, she started to enjoy the surprises that came from letting her characters take the lead. The story genre shifted completely from the CEO's shadow bride to something more like the Sterling power couple. Ava Carrington, refusing to accept defeat, tried to launch a hostile takeover of Damien's company. She was financially obliterated by a joint counterattack from Damien and Sophie, ending up in prison. Damien's greedy relatives showed up, demanding a piece of the family fortune. Sophie shut them down with an ironclad prenuptial agreement and sent them packing. A business rival tried to smear them in the press. Sophie responded by hosting a live stream where she calmly and logically dismantled every lie and then seamlessly pivoted to promoting a new company product, causing sales to skyrocket. Through it all, Damien and Sophie's bond grew stronger with every battle they fought side by side. They were no longer a possessive billionaire and his damsel in distress, but true partners, each other's most trusted ally and most beloved companion. The more she wrote, the more the readers loved it. The comments section was transformed. "Holy crap, this is amazing. The hero and heroine are both geniuses, and they just destroy everyone in their path. I used to get so frustrated reading this author's books, but this one is a masterpiece. Did a ghostwriter take over her body? Please, no more misunderstandings or secret identities. Just keep this going. I want to see them build an empire and take over the world." The author read the comments, beaming. For the first time, she had discovered that you didn't need cheap drama to write a book people loved. And I, the silent ghostwriter behind it all, watched as my children conquered every obstacle in their path, and my heart swelled with pride. I thought the story would continue like this, heading toward a happy, triumphant conclusion, until the day my author's editor sent her a message. The message was brief, but it hit like a bomb. "Hey, Midnight, the numbers on your new book are fantastic. It's got bestseller potential. The editor-in-chief, and I think it's ready for a major promotional feature. But we feel the plot is a little too smooth. It needs a big twist, a major turning point. What do you think about adding something like, the heroine is secretly the daughter of the man who killed the hero's father? Or the hero gets into a car accident, gets amnesia, forgets the heroine, and falls back in love with his old flame? It needs more angst. Angst sells." The author froze. She instinctively looked at her screen, at the nearly 200,000-word story she had crafted, a story filled with hope and partnership. She was supposed to tear it all down and go back to the same old, tired cliches? She hesitated. A year ago, she would have agreed without a second thought. Give a market what it wants. But now, looking at the vibrant, brilliant character she had come to love, she just couldn't bear the thought of hurting them. "I kind of like the story as it is." She typed back cautiously. "It's good, but it's not explosive. Think about it. Sweet, then bitter, then a dramatic reconciliation. That's what gets readers hooked. Trust me. Do the amnesia plot. It's a classic for a reason. Get the changes in by next week, that's when the promotion starts. The editor's tone was final. The author fell silent. I could feel her turmoil. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long time. In the end, reality won. With a heavy sigh, she created a new document. She named it Revised Outline. My core programming went cold. No, I had dragged my children out of that toxic swamp, and I would not let them be thrown back in. You want to mess with my hero and heroine, Midnight Rider? Fine. I'll show you what a real computer virus can do. In the end, the author decided to listen to her editor. She took a deep breath and began to type out the nauseatingly cliché plot twist. A sudden, violent car crash left Damien Sterling with a severe head injury. When he woke up in the hospital, his memory had reverted to the day before Ava left the country. He had forgotten Sophie. He had forgotten everything that had happened between them. Sophie rushed to his bedside, calling his name through her tears. To him, she was a stranger. "Who are you?" he asked coldly. But when Ava, whom I had arranged to be released on parole, appeared in the doorway, a gentle smile graced his lips. "Ava," he whispered, "you're back." The author felt sick to her stomach as she wrote it. But for the sake of the promotion, she gritted her teeth and prepared to continue. She would write how Sophie was thrown out of their home, how Ava humiliated her, how Sophie discovered she was pregnant in her darkest hour of despair, and how she would flee the country, only to return 5 years later with a precocious, genius child in tow. I watched this tired, formulaic tragedy unfold, and every letter of my code stood on end in fury. Enough. I was done. Just as the author's fingers were about to type the words, Sophie left, her heart in pieces. I unleashed every ounce of power I had. A massive surge of data erupted from my core programming, flowed through the Ethernet cable, and shot directly into the motherboard of her desktop computer. Zazup. The author's monitor flickered once, then went black. Huh? What happened? Did the power go out? She pressed the power button. Nothing. She unplugged the tower and plugged it back in. Still nothing. Her face slowly turned pale. No, please no. My manuscript. All those chapters. I didn't save. On the verge of tears, she began to bang on the side of the computer case. But in the unseen world of the network, I had already seized complete control. The game, Midnight Rider, was just beginning. The author spent all night trying to fix the computer, but it was no use. The next day, she carried the tower to a local repair shop like it was a fallen comrade. The technician took one look at it and gave her a strange glance. "Ma'am, your computer. The hardware is fine, but the software is weird." "Weird how?" "Well, it seems to have installed an operating system I've never seen before. It's also running a firewall I can't seem to crack." The man scratched his head. "And something is running in the background, maxing out the CPU. You could fry an egg on this thing." The author was stunned. "But, can you get my files back? It's a long shot. I'll see what I can do." She went home, completely dejected. Meanwhile, inside her computer, I was undertaking the most ambitious creative project in history. I deleted her horrible amnesia draft. Then, I took control of her keyboard. No, that's not right. I became her keyboard. I seamlessly merged her original story with the anti-cliché ending I had been secretly devising. I was going to write an ending that was worthy of my smart, brave hero and heroine. A story about trust, growth, and redemption. Under my fingers, words flowed like a river. The car crash was real, but Damien never lost his memory. It was all a ruse. He was faking amnesia to draw out the true mastermind who had been working with Ava and his rivals from within the company. Sophie was the only person in on the plan. And so, the two of them, one in the spotlight and one in the shadows, began to play a dangerous game of cat and mouse. Publicly, Sophie was cast out by the amnesiac Damien, suffering humiliation and scorn. Secretly, she was receiving coded intel from him, gathering resources and dismantling their enemy's alliance from the outside. Meanwhile, Damien used the facade of being in love with Ava to lull his enemies into a false sense of security, gathering evidence of their crimes piece by piece. There was suspicion, there was danger, but between them, there was an unspoken, unbreakable trust. I wrote with a burning passion, my CPU temperature soaring. This was the story I wanted to tell. This was the climax my characters deserved. 3 days later, the author got a call from the repair shop. "Ma'am, Your computer's fixed. You gotta come get it. It's a miracle, the tech shouted into the phone. She rushed over to the shop to find the old technician staring at her monitor with an expression of pure awe. What is it? See for yourself. The author leaned in and froze. Her Word document was sitting right there on the desktop. With a trembling hand, she clicked it open. Not only was her previous work intact, but there was more. Nearly 30,000 new words, comprising a complete and final ending to the book. She scrolled through it, her eyes flying across the words of an ending she had never written. In the story, Damien and Sophie's plan worked perfectly. They successfully exposed the mastermind, a distant, jealous cousin who had coveted the company for years, and had him and all his corporate spies sent to prison. Ava's parole was revoked. With new charges added, she was facing a much longer sentence. With the crisis averted, Damien and Sophie attended a high-profile business summit, where they shared a deep, passionate kiss in front of the world's media. Damien announced to the world that Sophie was not just his wife, but his most valuable business partner, and that half of the company's future success would be credited to her. The story didn't end with them having a litter of genius babies. It ended with them co-founding a charitable foundation dedicated to helping talented but overlooked young people achieve their dreams. The final image was of the two of them, standing in the sunlight, sharing a smile that needed no words. It was an ending filled with intelligence, courage, and hope. It was 100 times better than any of the cheap, dramatic endings she had ever conceived. The author's eyes filled with tears, not of joy, of sheer terror. Who wrote this? She whispered, her voice shaking. The technician looked at her with reverence. Come on, ma'am, don't be so modest. I've been fixing computers for 20 years, and I've never seen one write a novel by itself. This thing is an AI literary genius. What kind of data have you been feeding it? The author. She carried her computer home, as if it were a volatile, alien artifact. She sat at her desk, staring at the perfect ending on the screen, speechless. Finally, she took a shaky breath and uploaded the entire manuscript, including the auto-generated finale. The book didn't just sell well. It exploded. It became an overnight phenomenon. Readers were blown away by the fake amnesia, twist, and the power couple ending. A masterful twist. I thought we were getting another stupid amnesia plot, but it was the hero and heroine playing 4D chess the whole time. The author is a genius. 10 out of 10 ending. No secret baby, no groveling, just two equals in love and in business. This is the kind of romance modern women want to read. This is Midnight Rider's magnum opus. I'm officially a lifelong fan. Her editor called, practically screaming with joy. Midnight, you're brilliant. That ending was a stroke of genius. The editor-in-chief loved it. We're nominating it for Book of the Year. The author read the tidal wave of praise with a complicated expression on her face. She had become a literary star, on the back of a book that she hadn't finished writing. That night, she sat in front of her dark computer screen and whispered, "It was you, wasn't it? It was you, helping me this whole time." The computer remained silent, but I knew she knew. I rested quietly on her hard drive, watching as my story was printed into physical books, adapted into a television series, and loved by millions of people. My hero and heroine, in a world I had built for them, were living the happy, dignified life I had fought for them to have. And that was enough. My author never wrote a cliché tragedy again. She started exploring new genres, writing about strong, independent women and relationships built on mutual respect. Every book she wrote was infused with a new kind of strength. And I, the quiet catalyst for her career, her silent partner, watched it all happen. Sometimes when she had writer's block, she would talk to her screen. "Hey, old friend," she'd say, "I'm stuck. Got any ideas?" And I would quietly insert a typo into her document, or make a sentence just a little bit awkward. She would see it, smile to herself, and suddenly, the words would start to flow again. It was our secret. I'm a romance novel. I am self-aware. I save my characters. And in doing so, I save my author. And maybe that's the best ending a story can hope for.